Hello everybody and welcome to my video. This video is about electromagnetic energy trespass and that it is a different form of rape. It is an electromagnetic assault. So in this video we're going to talk about cell towers and the dangers. We're being microwaved on our streets, homes, and at work, and a little bit about chemtrails. Around the 20-minute mark of the video you will see the cables up the cell towers. It's completely crazy in terms of the size. Just watch that part of the video. It's at the end. I claim fair use, all rights reserved. I make this video for public protection, and I also want to point out police inaction and that it may be a crime and we need to seek arrests for those who fail to act. No one in government, or no corporation, no authority, no sovereign has the right to permit nor legalize an invisible electromagnetic energy trespass against your body, your children, your parents, your spouse, your pets, your plants, your property. Microwaves going into your body is an act of aggression against life itself. It is a trespass against life. A full-scale act of self-defense is reasonable against this inhumane act on a civilian population. Similarly with chemtrails. Chemtrails block the sun, affect soil, plants, pets, marine life, drinking water, the air we breathe, climate, and our families. It is also a trespass requiring self-defense. Police action is required immediately on both issues. We need to power down the towers and stop chemtrails immediately. And here you can see a picture of the cell towers and a chemtrail, both of which have to end today. Getting microwaved will malnourish you as you eat plenty of food, and some wonder, is this a soft kill? And so let's talk about the microwave oven. Really, we're talking about cell towers when we talk about microwave ovens. The radiation of a microwave can affect changes in your blood and your heart rate. Here's a little picture of a magnetron or any kind of transmitter that transmits to an antenna and produces microwaves. It's just a simple concept. Microwaves will heat up food, and by doing that it uses the polarity of water molecules. Microwaves remove and destroy food nutrients, leaving you overfed and undernourished. A direct connection to fat gain. Here we're showing what a water molecule, it's basically polar. We're showing the dipole moment. And so water, being a polar molecule, is vibrated by microwaves in a microwave oven and outside by the cell towers, causing vibration, causing heat. So when we are used to cooking food quickly, we tend to make poor choices as well. This little illustration just shows the rapidness of how water molecules, polar molecules, or even things within cell membranes, ions, etc., are affected by the rapid movement back and forth from the extreme high frequency of cell towers and microwave ovens. Microwaves kill the natural bacteria in food, leaving it void and dead. What's it doing to us from the cell towers? Well, when you overcook food, this is what happens. You destroy. And so when heavy metals are dispersed by aircraft from nozzles, and we talk about that later in the video, we breathe in nano-sized particle metals. And you're not supposed to put metals in a microwave, but chemtrail spray have metals, aluminum, etc. So now what? Well, we ask for police protection because we would get in trouble if we started solving the problem on our own. So what happens when you put metals into a microwave? It overheats, causes fire, causes all kinds of problems. So what are the microwaves from cell towers doing to the polar molecules in your body? Well, it's the same thing being done in your kitchen microwave, but we generally don't know this until now. So we now say power down the towers. It's called bodily harm. In this little segment here, I'm going to basically try to get you to imagine yourself being in a microwave oven as a tiny little life form, and then just imagine yourself, being outside in the world where the microwave transmitter is the cell tower. So really the world that we live in is the microwave oven cavity. And here's what happens when you are in a microwave cavity.
And this is what microwave radio frequency radiation sounds like coming from a cell phone antenna. This is a long-term care facility, and on the grounds we have a cell phone antenna disguised as a flagpole. Here we have more than 5,000 microwatts per meter squared. If you live within a few hundred meters of these cell phone antennas, you are exposed to constant microwave radio frequency radiation. And this is 11,000 microwatts per meter squared.
And so, basically being outside, it's the equivalent of being in a microwave oven. Not a good thing. We need to stop the microwavation of the public. So it affects our bodies because we have all sorts of polar molecules, ions, etc. within us. It causes damage to our bodies and the nutrients within us by vibrating water molecules and other polar molecules, ions, very rapidly. This is an inhumane act on a civilian population. We require police protection. Pull it. We need the police to pull the switch for us. So cops, power down the towers. It's inhumane to put a baby in a microwave and cook the baby. That's just nuts. But it's an inhumane act also to microwave any living being like the civilian population, which is a Section 4 violation, a crime against humanity from the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act. It's also criminal negligence in failing to protect the public, as the police duties are to protect the public and preserve peace and to prevent crime. And so, you would never want to microwave your child or anyone else. Well, that's exactly what's happening out on the streets and even within your home from the towers that are out on the streets. So putting metal in a microwave will be all kinds of problems, and we are constantly being sprayed metals down upon us, nano-sized metals, and we're breathing it in. It's in our tissues. It's spreading out. You can see the regularity of the waveform of the spray. And so chemtrails are an inhumane act on a civilian population, and we need the police to act at common law and seize suspected airports and suspected aircraft. We need the police and everyone to question the trusted first. We need to leave passengers and visitors alone and question the trusted first. And so, having said that, I leave you with the other previous videos. I just leave it at the end just to kind of put everything all together. Enjoy the video, and we have to stop chemtrail spraying, and we have to power down the towers. Hello everybody, and welcome to my video. In this video I am putting two videos together. The first one is on the cell towers and the dangers of cell towers, and I'm going to show you the extreme power from cell towers, as well as in the second video the same. However, the first part of the video is going to hopefully hit home in terms of what you can expect from cell towers, and the second part of the video, the second half, is on the massiveness, on the power, the extreme power. And the second part of the video also is going to be a little bit about chemtrails, which are highly visible by most people. Some people still can't see them because they are in tune with the blindness of others. I claim fair use. I reserve all rights. This is intended for public protection, and I intend to show how the police are not reacting and therefore behaving criminally, and I am seeking for the arrest of police officers who fail to act, not just on the matter of chemtrails, but on the matter of cell phone towers, and how the radiation, the microwave radiation upon the public is an inhumane act on a civilian population, which is a Section 4 violation of the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act. And the failing to protect the public is also the same crime. And it's also a crime of criminal negligence on the part of police, as well as the part of others who fail to report the microwavation of the public. So enjoy the video. It's for public protection and for the purposes to arrest those who fail to act, as well as who do these crimes to the public. Enjoy the video.
Type of emissions.
Okay, the reason we're told not to hold the cell phone next to our head is because it's constantly emitting microwave radiation. And as you move it away, you can see the level goes down. And this is what microwave radio frequency radiation sounds like coming from a cell phone antenna. This is a long-term care facility, and on the grounds we have a cell phone antenna disguised as a flagpole. Here we have more than 5,000 microwatts per meter squared. If you live within a few hundred meters of these cell phone antennas, you are exposed to constant microwave radio frequency radiation. And this is 11,000 microwatts per meter squared.
We did that last filming in November of last year, 2011, and the readings that we got. In order for us to be able to have a conversation about this, I think it's really important to understand some key concepts and terms, and this is something I teach at Trent University, so I'm just going to introduce you to some of the concepts that I share with my students as well, and this is called Antennas 101. This is called a cellular base station, and it consists of tower that holds the antennas. In Europe, they call it a mast, so that's how you might be able to see it in the literature. It has, this particular one has quite a few antennas on it, and it's in Toronto, by the way. The third part of one of these cellular base stations is the cabin that contains the electrical supply. Now, these antennas look very different and they have different functions. The ones at the top are omnidirectional, which means they radiate in all directions. And one of the ways that you can think about them is like an incandescent light bulb that simply gives light in all directions. We have some that are point-to-point antennas, and here you can imagine a laser where you beam the laser to another antenna that picks up the signal. And the third type of antenna we have here is called a sector antenna, which simply radiates in a certain direction. And one of the ways to think of a sector antenna is like a flashlight. So when you beam a flashlight in a direction, the light doesn't go everywhere. Now let's take a look at the antenna on the Bronte Fire Hall. Here you can see that there are 3 antennas that are point to point. If we move up, we have some sector antennas. These are the 2G and 4G antennas. And then we have something called a 4G antenna. You can see here that they're much broader than the 2G and 3G antennas. And now we have an example of how these antennas should work. This is a sector antenna, and ideally, this is the type of radiation you should get from it. In reality, however, these antennas have something called a side lobe, which means that some of the radiation is going to be given off in a direction that they really don't want it to go. And if we look at the radiation pattern, we can see here that you have very high levels of radiation at a distance of about 200 meters with this particular kind of configuration, but you also have very high levels immediately beneath the antenna. Now, some antenna providers will tell you the safest place you could be when it comes to an antenna is immediately underneath it. So when people are complaining that they don't want an antenna on their apartment building, what the cell phone provider will tell you is, well, if we put it on your neighbors, you're going to get more of the radiation. And so you can see here that this is one of the reasons it's particularly important not to have firefighters' antennas on fire halls. Many of the fire halls, although not the one here, have a flat roof, and the firefighters go on that flat roof to do some of their drills. They also have something called a hose tower. So they take the hose up there after they've used it and allow it to dry. So they actually get very close to some of the antennas that are immediately on or near their buildings. So this is another reason why that is not an ideal place to put them.
Type of emissions.
Okay, the reason we're told not to hold the cell phone next to our head is because it's constantly emitting microwave radiation. And as you move it away, you can see the level goes down. And this is what microwave radio frequency radiation sounds like coming from a cell phone antenna. This is a long-term care facility, and on the grounds we have a cell phone antenna disguised as a flagpole. Here we have more than 5,000 microwatts per meter squared. If you live within a few hundred meters of these cell phone antennas, you are exposed to constant microwave radio frequency radiation. And this is 11,000 microwatts per meter squared.
We did that last filming in November of last year, 2011, and the readings that we got were between 5,000 and 11,000 microwatts per centimeter squared, per meter squared. And I've got Rob Metzinger here who's going to do some demonstrations. Most people recognize that it's harmful to hold a cell phone to your head, and they will say, but the towers are perfectly safe. So what we're going to do is, while he sets up, is that we're actually going to measure how close you have to get to the cell phone to get levels between 5 and 11,000 microwatts per meter squared. So he's got a cell phone, and he's going to make a call. So what are the levels that you're getting for that radiation?
Distance of about an inch, we're getting readings of about 10,000 microwatts per square meter.
Okay, so 1 inch from a cell phone, we're getting the same readings that we were getting across the street from these cell towers. So if that much radiation is harmful if you hold it to your head, how harmful is it when you're exposing your entire body to it? Most people are concerned about antennas, but they don't realize that there are a lot of devices in your home that also emit microwave radiation, and they emit it constantly. And what Rob is doing here, he's selecting, is it a baby monitor? Okay, here we have a baby monitor. Do you want to move even further away?
At this point, we're reading about 11,000 or 10,000 microwatts per square meter.
Baby monitors, to put an infant next to a baby monitor is probably the worst thing that you can do. In Europe, they have voice-activated baby monitors, which means they're not radiating until the infant cries or makes a sound. Here, we're basically microwaving infants. We're also microwaving the parent who has the other part of the monitor on a hip or near them. The next thing we're going to show is a cordless phone.
That's a similar sound to the baby monitor. It's using DEC technology as well, I believe. And at about this distance, we're getting 10 to 11,000 microwatts per square meter as well. And you can hear that that each source has its own distinct audio pattern. So that helps us identify what the sources are with this measuring equipment.
Okay, so we're concerned about a tower that's several hundred meters away, yet we have these devices, and we might even have them in our bedroom irradiating us all night long. Once again, in Europe, and I think you can buy them here as well, there are cordless phones that are on demand, which means they don't radiate. Here the base is radiating whether you're using that phone or not. In Europe, they have phones that are on demand, which means it's not until you pick up the receiver to make a call that you're exposed to the radiation. So when it comes to cell phones versus a cordless phone in your home is actually much more dangerous.
Okay, the next item is a wireless router. This is a pretty beefed up little unit, but the same thing goes for a home router. This is a signal pattern we typically hear when we measure wireless internet routers. And again, at a distance of about 18 inches or so, we're getting 10,000 microwatts per square meter. So it's not just what's coming from outside, it's what we're generating inside on our own as well. So it's all concerning.
Thank you very much, Rob. The whole purpose of this demonstration is to show you that we're exposed to this radiation all the time. We're exposed at home, at school, at work, and we simply don't want to be exposed to. So the question we started with, cellular antennas in your neighborhood, are they safe? And I guess my response to that is definitely not. They're really not safe. And whenever you say this to people, what they say is, well, how do you know? And, you know, if this were true, they would be telling us. This is the site on Google Map. This is the fire hall right here. And these are the various radiuses, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500 meters within which the studies are telling us there could be biological effects. So for those of you who live within that, you've got some reason for concern. However, remember the antennas are sector antennas, and depending on which way they're facing and how powerful they are, it could be a very different population that could be exposed to this radiation and could experience some of the symptoms that Veronica experienced. Okay, if this was really unsafe, and if this were true, they would have told us. Well, they are telling us. We have the World Health Organization telling us this is a possible carcinogen. We have the U.S. Air Force telling us it causes cancer in rats. We have the Interphone study telling us it causes brain tumors. We have 3 studies showing that it's actually associated with cancer if you live near them. We have 5 studies showing that it increases symptoms of electrical sensitivity, and we have another study showing us it affects our hormone levels. So what I'd like to say is they are telling us. They really are telling us, and the problem is that we are not listening. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody, and welcome to my video on cell towers and chemtrails. If you look at this picture here, it's a radiation pattern of a cell tower antenna. It doesn't look good for the population that are close to it, and even at distances. We do have a new salute for chemtrails and possibly for cell towers. As you can see, microwave radiation will affect human cells in many ways. In biological membranes, the charge on membrane barriers are carried by ions, not by electrons as in an electrical circuit. The charge on the membrane barrier are carried by ions, not electrons, and cell phones create electric fields. Electromagnetic fields will influence polar or charged substances or molecules or ions within our bodies. Take a look at this picture as you have. Now look at this picture here. You have some genes, drugs, or other toxic material outside a cell membrane, and during an electric field, the electric field induces a voltage across the cell membrane, causing those genes or drugs or toxic substances to be inside the cell membrane. A microwave oven works on the principles of shifting poles of dipole molecules extremely rapidly to create heat to cook. Google microwave ovens and how they work. Mobile phones operate on microwave radiation, and you can see here how 5-10-year-olds, their brains are affected. And let's get the cell towers. Look at the cables. And so in this picture here, you're going to see the town of Milton in southern Ontario, and you can see the scale of 2 kilometers. You'll see that many cell towers are less than 2 kilometers apart, less than 10 miles for sure. And as you can see, Mississauga has a ton of cell towers. A typical cell phone has enough power to reach a cell tower of up to 45 miles away. Depending on the technology of the cell phone network, the maximum distance may be as low as 22 miles because the signal otherwise takes too long for the highly accurate timing of the cell phone protocol to work reliably. And 45 miles at less than 1 watt of power. So let's take a look at southern Ontario again here. Look, see here is 10 kilometer scale, and you can see the Golden Horseshoe has tons and tons and tons of cell phone towers. It's just massive. So here again we have the same scale, 10 kilometer scale, and you can see a 45 mile radius. So a 1 watt, less than 1 watt cell phone has that coverage. It can reach a cell tower within that area of that large circle. Cell phones transmit at less than 1 watt of power and can reach a tower 45 miles away. Look at this picture here. You've seen this before in another video. 1200 watt hair dryers equals 2400 watts, and that equals the amount of power that this satellite uses in orbit. And satellites orbit around 22,000 miles above, and the circumference of the Earth is 24,000 miles. That's how high these satellites are, and you only need 2400 watts. The cell towers, like the one below, are numerous and probably spaced less than 10 miles apart. If a communications satellite uses 2 hair dryers worth of power and is spaced 22,000 miles apart from me and you, then the cables below must have a purpose other than communications for 10 miles between towers, or even 2 miles between towers. The amount of power in the cables below is weapons size. Enough to cook 1,000 cows in an hour? This is suspicious and it needs to be reported. So let's talk about microwave ovens. A microwave oven uses voltages of about 4 kilovolts or 4,000 volts. And it operates at a frequency of around 2400 megahertz, which is 2.4 gigahertz. This here is a microwave transmitter, and it uses something close to a 14 gauge copper wire, which is really small. 14 gauge copper wire only has a thickness of just over 1/16 of an inch. And here is a microwave transmitter. It's from a microwave oven, 4,000 volts, 2.4 gigahertz. And as you can see, it uses almost the size of house wiring. So let's talk about transmission lines. Cabling, 4-0 cable is about half an inch thick and can handle over 200 amps. We're not even going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this cable that you see on the screen now. This cable here is used in many transmission line applications of cell towers, and the center core of the thing has an outer diameter of 0.71 inches, which is almost 3/4 of an inch, and it has a peak power of 302 kilowatts. 302 kilowatts is enough power to power up 302 microwave ovens. Do you hear that? That cable that you just saw, that coaxial cable that powers cell towers, or goes up the mast of the cell towers, can power potentially 302 microwave ovens, because it has an outer diameter of core of almost 3/4 of an inch. As you can see here, these cables are massive. Just look at how massive these cables are. And you can see in comparison to the small cables in the background there, along with these large cables. This cable here in particular has almost a 3/4 inch center core outer diameter, and an outer diameter of the whole cable of about 2 inches. It's just massive. You don't need that kind of power for 2 kilometers. And look where they're putting these microwave transmitters. They're putting them at the top of church crosses. That's disgusting. So when you're at church, look what's happening to people. Look what's happening when you're near a cell tower. Look, here's another. Look at the church. Are you joking? Look at these cables. These are huge, massive cables at a church. So now let's look at backup generators. This is about a 50 kilowatt generator. That's about enough power to run a house, 200 amp power. And look at this cable here. This is even bigger than the cable I was talking before. It's the thickness of a brick, larger than the thickness of a brick. So back to the backup power for the cell towers. Look at that, 50 kilowatt. 50 kilowatt. That's unbelievable. For towers, when in fact all you need is 2.4 kilowatts to go from a satellite 22,000 miles away. The effects on human cells, let's talk about that. In this picture, you're going to see, genes and drugs outside of a cell, and then an electric field is induced, and then across the membrane, and then all of those things that are outside the cell, could be toxins, drugs, or genes, then end up inside a cell. This could be dangerous, especially if there's chemtrail spraying and we don't know what's in the spray. A lot of people are concerned about chemtrails and nobody's talking about it. The police have been informed or are doing nothing about it. And so if you don't know about chemtrails, take a look at this here. These are lines in the sky from jet aircraft. This is not engine exhaust. These are the output of nozzles. This is not thrust output from an engine. These are nozzle output from an engine. Just look at that. That is not a trail from an engine. That is a trail from a nozzle. It's chemicals. They're particulates. Tiny particulates, nano-sized particulates. And it needs to be stopped right away. Here you see a cell tower, and there again we see some massive cablings, and so we wonder now, in conjunction with the chemical spraying, are these towers used for other purposes? Because if you just talk about the engine, the turboprop engine is basically a turbine engine. It's just like the high bypass turbofan engine. They use the same core engine. It's a turbine engine, so neither of them produce trails. It's only the nozzles at the output. It's a modification in line with exhaust. Just look at the skin. The skin is a different color than the rest of the pylon. It's an addition. It's a modification. And right in line with exhaust. So any kind of trail that comes out of these jet engines is coming from the nozzle. It's very unlikely because of diffusion up in the upper atmosphere if it was condensation. Diffusion would take condensation out of the picture within seconds. Back again to the cabling. Look at the massive, massive, massive cables that go up the mast, okay? The inner core diameter of that, the inner conductor has a diameter of almost 3/4 of an inch. Okay, these cables, this particular cable has an outer diameter of 2 inches, just over 2 inches. It has a 302 kilowatt power capacity and can power up potentially 302 microwave ovens. And we hope for God that they're not working with the chemtrails in the sky. Again, look at the cables. These are massive, massive, massive cables when a satellite in orbit only uses 2.4 kilowatts or 2,400 watts, which is about the same amount of power as a hairdryer. Okay, this has a capacity of 302,000 watts, not 2,400 watts like a hairdryer. 302,000 watts compared to 2,400 watts of a hairdryer. And the 2,400 watts of a hairdryer is satellite power from 22,000 miles above. Now, many are speculating that these regularities of waves of whatever is from the cell towers or HAARP, and the chemtrails are helping with whatever purposes the electromagnetic radiation is shot into the atmosphere with. So we need to stop chemtrails, and we need to stop the microwavation of the civilian population. These are inhumane acts on a civilian population, a Section 4 violation of the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, punishable by life in prison. So inform police, and if the police do not respond, we need to make them defendants. Do something.